All right. Give it a minute or two to get started. All right, well, hopefully other people start joining in a few more minutes. First and foremost, good evening to everybody. I'm glad that you all that are jumping on, able to jump on. Again, this is Front Porch Discussions. It's called Front Porch Discussions because traditionally in black families, we gathered on the porch. If you're up north, it was on the stoop. Had serious conversations. Other family matters would take place. Hair braiding, discussing politics, what's happening in the neighborhood, so on and so forth. I started this due to a talk I had with my wife some years before she passed after an incident happened to me. So I decided to just start doing this. Again, I encourage all of my watchers, specifically my male watchers, because that's what this group is more geared to, black males. It's talking about the black situations. So I like for everybody to join in, being black women, white men, white women, because we all can listen and learn. But this is a group specifically for black males so they can express themselves and expose some of the things and injustices and inequities that have happened to them. Today is going to be a little different because there will be somebody coming alongside me to kind of talk about their concept of defunding the police. I think it's perfect timing after we've seen the situation that happened down in Wilmington. It was very unfortunate. The men on the force, three white men, were having a discussion. They thought it was private, but it was being filmed. And they basically got terminated. They were talking about starting a race war, talking about how they locked up black people. I just got a message not too long ago that they went through some of the cases that the guys had, and they're rescinding about 90 of them due to bias throughout their career as law enforcement. But I also have up here assumptions and perceptions, and I'm going to talk about some personal stories with that. Both stories are kind of funny to me because they happened to me. We know that whatever somebody perceives, their perception is usually their reality until something comes and changes that reality. But when I first got into education, I had a situation that came about. I came out of corporate America, so I was always in sales and management. I moved back to Durham after my father got sick, and he was in the hospital for a while, and we never know how life takes turns and when blessings are coming. Sometimes we don't see them as a blessing. When I got back to Durham, it was after Stephanie and I were married. We just bought a house. I could not find employment, and that was something that was very unusual, especially when you talk about being in sales and in management. So I couldn't find employment. So I took a job as a teacher assistant. Now, mind you, both of my parents were educators, and they always told me, make sure you get your education license so you can go into education. You can always have some job security. But I didn't want to hear that because, as we know, and I know, educators don't really make the money that they deserve. It's a rewarding career, and helping others. It's a giving career. You have to have a passion for it. But the money wasn't there, and I really was after the money. So I took that job. Things go on. My dad passes. I got back into sales. Did that for a little bit. And I was with a company that was about to have some crazy stuff going on, which was MCI WorldCom, if you all know about that fiasco. So I jumped back out of corporate America because a friend of mine was a principal. And he said, hey, your parents always told you education. You can come to my school and be the ISS coordinator, in-school suspension coordinator. You don't have to worry about lesson plans. You have to worry about all that teaching stuff. I need for you to just keep track of the students, make sure that you get the students that have been punished, make sure they do their work, so on and so forth. So I took the job because I didn't have anything at the time. But this is my second bout with education, found out I really kind of loved it. And I'm giving you all of this as a backstory. So once I did that, I figured out, hey, I probably think I want to teach. I like the job security. Still wasn't too happy about the money, but I just felt rewarded in helping young people. So I went into education, started teaching social studies. I did sixth grade the first year. This occurred on my second year. My friend Ed Boyd was also teaching at that school as well. So we're teaching, and we like to build relationship with kids, and we can relate to the kids that we had because we look like them. So, especially with guys, we didn't really roughhouse with the guys, but we knew how to joke with them, especially with both of us coaching sports also. So this one teacher down the hall, she was a white female, just couldn't relate to how we interacted with the kids. She thought that, somebody just gave us a job and we were just there doing whatever. So that was her perception, and also her making an assumption. So things go on, and throughout that seventh grade year of me teaching, the kids would always come to me and tell me things she was saying that we really couldn't teach, that we weren't that good, that we joked too much, we played too much. But we take education very seriously. Yes, we had our moments where we joked and laughed with the kids, but that was all in the relationship building, and those kids would do anything for us. So one day I got fed up with it. I was in her classroom. I went to get a kid. I said, hey, I asked her a question, and I was doing it to lead her into asking me questions. So she asked me a question and said, so I guess you got to go to college and get all your stuff together so that you can teach. I said, well, yeah, I have to get some education classes. Oh, well, blah, blah. She was just basically trying to say I had a job and I wasn't doing anything. So we end up the conversation. She said, so when are you going to go back to school? I said, well, I'm thinking about going back to get my PhD. And she looked at me very, very crazy, like, what do you mean? And so I said, you don't have your master's degree? And she didn't. And so that story in itself, just by seeing a black man interacting with other black kids, maybe not doing it the way you thought it should be done, but getting respect from the kids and influencing the kids and doing what they need to do, don't take it as if I don't have the credentials to be here, because I did. Warren, I see you, man. What's up, cuz? How you doing? So that's one instance. Me and my same partner, Ed, were in a summer program here in Durham. I will not name the university, but it was a summer history program for teachers. And so we did that program for about 4 weeks. So we were there about 8 or 9 in the morning until about 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon. So this one particular time, it was near the last few days, we were supposed to go to Haiti and study Haiti and the history of Haiti. Okay? In Durham they have the Haiti Heritage Cultural Center on Federal Street, which is basically near the hood. So this whole time of this program, no one paid Ed and I any attention. We were the only two black guys in the program. Actually, we were the only two black people in the program, period. So they wouldn't pay us any attention. Nobody really talked to us. Nobody really interacted with us. We would go, we'd have those open discussions and stuff during the day in the classes. And, we would participate, but nobody really gave us any attention. So on this day, we go to Haiti. And mind you, at the time, Ed owned the barbershop that was right across the street. So we went to the barbershop, was hanging out before we had to go across the street to the Haiti Heritage Center for the lessons of the day. So we go across, we parked at the barbershop in that parking lot. We walk across, go over to the Haiti, have a wonderful time learning about Durham, Durham's history, Durham's black history, and Haiti. And then when it's time to leave, this white lady approaches us and she says, where did you guys park? Where did you park? And we said, well, we parked across the street. We said, where did you park? She said, well, I parked right there. If you come out of Hayti and come down the steps, there's a little Phoenix shopping center to the left. So she parked over there. So we said, oh, okay. Didn't think anything of it. And then she said, well, can you guys walk me to my car? So when she said that, we both looked at each other because we knew, she was worried about the men that were hanging out on the street, the area that it was in. But instead of just saying, I would like for you men to walk me to my car because I'm uncomfortable, and first of all, why choose the two black guys to walk you. It was a whole lot of white guys there that could have walked her. So she was assuming we're acclimated to this neighborhood and around this aura and ambiance, you know. So she was assuming. But she asked us to walk her to a car, and she says, because I have a fear of parking lots, can you walk me to my car because I have a fear of parking lots? So we walked her to a car, but I was dying laughing the entire time because this lady was trying to dress it up instead of calling it what it was. I would have respected her a whole lot more if she had just said what she had to say. I'm nervous. There are men out here. I'm not used to these type areas, and can you walk me to my car? But we walked her to a car. So now back to the police situation in Wilmington. I have my son that's about to come down and join me because he has a very good philosophy on defunding the police. He's been saying that for a number of years now. He's also been protesting, well, I won't say protesting, but very active in trying to get some of the officers that are in the schools removed. He and I have a debate about that. I think that they are necessary. He doesn't really believe that they are necessary. I say it depends on the schools that you're in, first and foremost. And maybe you can cut hours or cut the numbers that are in some schools. But I do believe all schools throughout the country need to have at least one officer present due to situations that may come about that may be beyond the control of administration and teachers. But he seems to feel a different way. We also kind of feel differently in defunding the police department. He says it in a way in which he thinks a gang of funds need to be pulled. I've noticed that across the country they've defunded education. So I understand defunding, and I think a lot of those dollars should come back into education. And he has a unique take on that. But I think we need to do better screening of our officers, being psych evaluations, deeper background checks and dives, and also some requirements other than just graduating from high school. I think they need to have at least gotten an associate's degree from a community college, if not a 4-year degree, and studied criminal justice or some type of legal stuff, you know, maybe political science, or maybe even some people go to law school and then go into being an officer, because a lot of officers we see do not know the law. They just act on what they perceive, what they think, or what they believe their power gives them because they have the badge. Now, that's not the badge police, because it is a very noble profession. I have a lot of friends that are police officers, and they risk their lives every day that they put their uniform on and step out of the house. It's a situation where they may not come back. So in that aspect, I can sympathize and respect them. But the few bad apples, or a lot of bad apples, make it bad for those that are good. So if you all give me a second, I'll be right back. Do not go anywhere. Hey, Jordan. Jordan, I'm ready. Back, everybody. So in that aspect, you know, I can respect cops. I try to give respect to people, and hopefully I get respect back. Hopefully they respect my profession in dealing with young people, and trying to educate them and get them to do what they're supposed to do. And if I do my job properly, along with a parent base and a parent relationship, then hopefully the police will not have to encounter any of the ones that I touch in a negative manner. Hopefully it'll all be positive. My son's on his way down here, and I'm going to let him speak to you all about defunding the police. Because I get it, but I think it needs to be more than just defunding. Because we do need to make sure that they are protected when they are on their job. And if funds are needed for that, and for them to be out protecting and policing us and making sure that we're safe, which is what they're supposed to be doing, and not, speaking of race wars, and how to start one and targeting black males and racial profiling, then things will be okay. I think we get rid of that racial profiling and stuff by those background checks and whatnot. So if y'all got any questions for me, anything you want to say, just hop in and type it in. If you're looking at me on Instagram, then just go ahead and request to join. Al Rowe, what's going on, man? I see you. Brenda Harrington, cousin Keita. Hello, how are you? I love you too. Yeah, Warren, the lady said she had a fear of parking lots, my dude. Cousin, it was crazy. It was crazy. I was dying laughing. I was basically laying in the street laughing. She said, I have a fear of parking lots. It's like she can't go anywhere. She can't go to the mall. She can't go to her child's school. So she had a phobia. I don't know what you would call that one. I'm claustrophobic, but I don't know what to call it when people can't go into a parking lot. I guess it's parkophobia. So I had somebody join on Instagram, waving at me. Let me see. Y'all give me a second. Can't go back to my screen. I don't know what's taking my son so long. I'm glad y'all are holding on though, because I'm running out of stuff to talk about. And it's taking him forever to get down here. Y'all know how teenagers are. He knew this was starting at 6:15, and I called him. He's still not down here. So I had this guy on Instagram just asked to go live, come in on my live. I'm waiting for him to come in, see what he has to say. But he ain't saying nothing. So y'all, what I'm gonna do, because I'm not gonna just keep y'all sitting here waiting while this guy comes on. I'm gonna end this one, and then when he comes, I'll come back on. Oh, here he is now. What's up, man? You got everybody waiting, bro. What's going on? Come on in here. Sit down. All right. So I have with me my son, Jordan Biggs. He's going into his sophomore year at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You got Warren and Keita up there. So he and I have been talking a lot, especially during this climate that we're in right now. And Jordan is an activist. I'm gonna go ahead and claim it and call it. He's majoring in political science and African American studies, and he wants to fight for the injustices or against the injustices of others. He wants to be given, and he has a unique take on defunding the police force, the police departments across the country. And he and I have been talking about it. And after that situation that happened yesterday in Wilmington, I asked if he'll come in and take a seat and just tell us his thoughts on defunding that and some of his thoughts about taking SROs, as student resource officers, out of school. So I'll let you talk, man. You can talk about defunding and how you think where the money should go, how you think it would operate, what type of move they would need to make that happen. How do you think that would go about?
Cool. So, I think a big like misconception about when people were saying defund the police or abolish the police. Is like this is real reactionary. People are just saying it because they're mad right now. Huh?
I said, make sure you speak loud. Okay.
So when you talk about defund the police, abolishing police, it's really a framework that's been created by activists for like decades. So people like Angela Davis, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, these black queer women who have been working to fight for equity for decades, who have been building this framework. To say defunding the police is reactionary is right in that they're reacting to the system, but it's wrong to say this is something that was just made up yesterday. So when we think about reasons the police are called, a whole lot of times they're called for stuff that isn't crime related. So here in Durham, we have some murals downtown, and one of them was a list of people who've been killed by Durham PD over the last couple of years, and we saw that one of the boys' names, one of the boys' last names was Biggs. So we started googling his story, seeing what led to his death, and he had a mental illness. The police were called, and the situation got escalated due to the police being there. So when we think about defunding the police, it's diverting the money we use for the police into social services that will better deal with the reasons why police are called. So instead of having the police called on the Biggs boy who was killed, we would have a dedicated mental health service that was funded through the reallocation of funds. So we have to think about how police have been used historically, what the system is made to do. I think it's sort of odd for us to all recognize that it comes from like slave forces in the South and protection of private property in the North, but still think it can be reformed. I think reform implies that something's wrong with it and ignores that it's sort of working the way it was supposed to work, right? So if we can acknowledge that police are inherently racist, that the force is inherently racist, we can also acknowledge that it's necessary to deconstruct it and make something better, something more communal, something that makes people accountable for their actions, but also ensures that their race, their income level, their sexual orientation, their gender identity isn't an inhibitor of their safety, right?
So you're saying that? Do you think, what does this need to happen in phases? Does this something you just wipe everything out and just start building something brand new, or do you build it in pieces? How do you think that's going to come about? How do you do that?
So I think that's another big point where a whole lot of people get confused. It's not about like tomorrow there's just no police. It's gradually defunding the police, reallocating those funds, and once we have systems in place that can better deal with mental health crises, with quote unquote crimes of survival, looking at the root causes of why people commit crimes in the first place, there will A, be a lack in crime, and B, proof that force that is inherently violent, that is inherently racist, isn't necessary to produce safety in communities.
Okay, I got that. So you're taking that same take when we talk about having officers in the school system as well.
Yeah.
And okay, just to for the sake of conversation. So, what happens when there's a bank robbery near a school, and the bank robbers run into the school, but administration is not prepared to handle that? How do you know? Because my philosophy, I understand what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that there needs to be at least one officer in every school for those type of emergencies. A lot of times they're kids that I had a kid when I was at a school in another district. He had an asthma attack, and I was there, but and that school didn't have um, a resource officer, not full time. He was usually at this other school, and he would come to us a few days out of the week, and it would always be near the end of the day. This happened in the morning, so it was a situation where I got to try to call and get EMS and all this other kind of stuff when that officer had been there. And then there was a bank robbery right around the corner from that school, and I had to make sure the school was locked down. But had I not gotten to a door in time, and the robber come in, grab a kid as a hostage, whatever. I think I would have needed that presence there. You know.
I mean, and that makes sense. But the questions I would ask are, one, what would an SRO do to help that kid in the asthma attack that a nurse couldn't do? Jaden and I were talking the other day, trying to count the amount of times we've been able to see a nurse when I was in DPS and she's in DPS. I think we ended up at around 3, but we've seen police in schools all the time.
Gotcha.
We can't have rotational nurses, rotational social workers, rotational counselors, but police there all the time.
Okay.
That's not safety.
Well, I appreciate you coming and giving your take, man. Thank you for joining me. Front Porch Discussions. Y'all have a good evening. And again, before I leave, shout out to my brothers from Making South 5 Fraternity Incorporated, Rue Dogs. And this shirt came from Subject to Change. Mr. Jamie Patterson, one of the bros. Jamie Patterson. Make sure you go and Google Subject to Change, the number 2. Subject to Change. He can take care of your family reunions, your organizations, fraternities, sororities, Boy Scouts, football teams, whatever. He does pins, banners, T-shirts, sweatshirts, sweaters, anything of that sort that it can be promotional and reflect an organization or whatever. So Subject to Change, shout out to Jamie, and I'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good evening.